As Erin strengthens, tropical storm watches are now in effect for portions of the Leeward Islands. Can Erin thread the needle, or will we see more direct impacts? Your forecast across the Caribbean and the Bahamas starts right now.
This is Meteo Mundo.
Hi friends, Rusty back here at Meteo Mundo. We are your home for Caribbean weather. It's nice to see you on a Thursday. I hope you're doing well. Coming up in this video, I've got all the news and information on Erin. We'll take a look at the latest advisory from the Hurricane Center, the latest model data. Now we have tropical storm watches in effect, so we're going to break down the potential impacts and the timing, island by island, and a deep dive to the latter half of where Erin might be going. A lot to get into. We even have an area to talk about in the Southwest Gulf as well. Meteo Mundo is sponsored by the Lean Law Firm of Central Florida. They're hometown homeowners insurance attorneys offering free consultation and policy reviews. Storm moves into the area, you get damage of any kind. Go to leanonmelaw.com if you would like more information. As always, want to hear from the Meteo Mundo weather community as we move along. You have a specific question about the forecast, feel free to drop it in the comments section below. Obviously, if you're going to be impacted by Erin, you can ask a question, drop it down there. So let me give you the latest advisory details. As of the 5 p.m. Atlantic Standard Time Thursday advisory, Erin now has winds of 60 miles an hour, pressure falling down to 998 millibars. Still moving briskly west at 17, located 790 miles or 1,270 kilometers from the northern Leeward Islands. This is the latest cone and track from the National Hurricane Center. That's what you guys see, the official track and cone from the NHC there on my weather system. This is what Erin looks like right now on infrared satellite imagery. I'm going to drop off some of this so you guys can see it a little bit clearer. Look, over the last 6 to 12 hours, we're beginning to see a consolidation again, especially that central dense overcast near the actual center. We've been fighting, Erin has, some northeast wind shear all day long, and you can see that on the visible satellite imagery. There's a little bit of shear in the northeast, and that's why here, just before we lose our visible satellite imagery, you guys see some of those clouds that get kind of pushed off to the south and to the west, right at the mid and the upper levels. As that storm's trying to wrap up, that's the northeast shear that Erin has been impacted by. Now, I mention this because it's been a key component in pushing Erin in the short term slightly farther south and west. We talked about it in yesterday's video that a weaker storm with a little bit more shear would get shoved a little bit farther south and west in the short term, and that's what we've seen. And the Hurricane Center and the models have picked up on that, so the trend over the next 48 hours has been for a little bit farther south and west track, getting us a little bit closer to the Leeward Islands, which is now why we do have those tropical storm watches that are currently in effect. Now, when we look at the overall track, look, it does appear that the center of Erin is going to move north of the Leeward Islands and the Virgin Islands, but we're close. We don't have as much of a buffer, if you will, than what we had just 24 hours ago. So what we really want to do here is, while we might expect tropical storm conditions from the, let's say, Antigua, Barbuda areas north, and maybe even portions of the British Virgin Islands, we want to try and keep that core of wind farther away. When we look at Anguilla, towards the southern extent now of the cone of uncertainty from the Hurricane Center, we just have a 40-mile buffer. The actual center track is more like 117, but 24 hours ago, that was about 175 miles. So there has been a shift to the south in the track of Erin as it gets closer to the Leeward Islands and the British and U.S. Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. Still expecting the core to be north, but it's getting kind of precariously close, and now we're starting to see a better opportunity to have some tropical storm conditions in these areas beginning on Saturday morning, throughout the day Saturday, and into Sunday in places like Puerto Rico. Let's look at the models. We're just going to go into the short term at this point in time. I'm going to kind of basically break down the shorter term for the northern Leeward Islands, the Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico, and then we will get into the extended forecast beyond that. So you're looking at the GFS model. Now, one thing is, because Erin has been fighting this shear, winds are 60 miles an hour. It is forecast to become a hurricane by tomorrow morning. It more than likely is not going to be a major hurricane as it hopefully moves just north of places like Anguilla and Anegada, but it will be beginning to wrap up. And when I show you the extended, you're going to see this storm really get going into major hurricane status as it moves away from these areas and closer to places like the Bahamas, Turks and Caicos, Bermuda, and the east coast of the United States. But again, in the shorter term, we're beginning to see a system as we get into Saturday produce stronger winds and heavy amounts of rain. That's another story here. So as we get into Saturday morning, you can see the GFS has it just north and east, but right on the center line of the track for the National Hurricane Center. And then again, the core winds moving to the north of the Leeward Islands and the Virgin Islands, but a lot of rain that could have come along for the ride as well. Switching over to the wind gusts that we could see out of this. So, there's going to be an opportunity here to get sustained tropical storm conditions. And we'll look at the areas under tropical storm watches. Those are the blue slash lines for us here. But you can clearly see on these wind gust products that just 100 miles north of the islands is where you're going to have some high-end tropical storm force winds. And again, we got to keep that just north. We hope that we don't get any farther slip south and west on the models, because there's not much of a buffer anymore. Looking at the European model, okay, these are your ensemble members. Again, we are just north of the islands through most of the models into Saturday morning. It's a brush on the southwest extent of the ensemble members, but the cluster is, again, right around 100 miles to the north. When we look at the HAFS A model, okay, this is the HAFS A model through Saturday as well. Again, you'll see a developing storm getting stronger and stronger with Erin. There is Anguilla, there is Barbuda, there is Anegada in the British Virgin Islands. We're just north of that. Let me take myself off camera here, actually. Bottom right-hand side of your screen, 80-mile-an-hour winds. So you have a hurricane on the HAFS A model, but it's not a Cat 2. It's certainly not a Cat 3. You have, basically a Cat 1 hurricane beginning to move in. Some models have a Cat 1, some have a Cat 2 as it moves up just to the north. I showed you this yesterday, the HAFS A model Saturday morning with Erin. So now you have winds of 80 miles an hour. Yesterday, it was 115. So now you have a Cat 1 rather than a Cat 3. That's good news. What's the bad news? Because now it's a weaker storm. Now the HAFS A model has the center of Erin just 100 miles from Anguilla. Yesterday, it was 200 miles. So we've slashed the buffer in half. We don't want to see in the next 24 hours. The models continue to show a bit of a weaker storm in the short term, which would tug the storm farther south and west. Again, that shear is expected to relax, and it looks like it is relaxing right now, which should allow Erin to kind of pull more west and eventually northwest before it gets into the islands. This is the reflectivity. The other story could be the rainfall that comes out of Erin. We could have, again, tropical storm conditions, but we could have some locally heavy flooding rains for the northern Leeward Islands, the Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico. There's Puerto Rico. As we get towards Turks and Caicos, we could start to see some of the outer feeder bands with a rapidly strengthening Erin, even again, more than likely not going to have a direct impact to Turks and Caicos, but some of those westerly outer feeder bands beginning to move in on Sunday morning. So this is the arrival of tropical storm force winds, okay? So as we get into tomorrow night and then throughout the night and Saturday morning, that's when we would start to see the arrival of tropical storm force winds. I'll take myself off camera, look on the bottom right-hand side of your screen. Most of the Leeward Islands is in that 30, 40 to 50% chance of seeing sustained winds of over 39 miles an hour. That's why we have the tropical storm watches that are currently in effect. We'll break down the islands, island by island coming up, I promise you that. Then into the Virgin Islands early on Saturday morning and into Puerto Rico throughout the remainder of the day Saturday, potentially again scraping the Dominican Republic and scraping Turks and Caicos Sunday and into early on Monday. But the first initial batch of tropical storm force winds could start to move in the wee hours of Saturday morning into the northern Leeward Islands. So these are the areas currently under tropical storm watches: Anguilla and Barbuda, St. Martin and St. Bart's, St. Martin, and Saba and St. Eustatius. This could change. Additional islands could be added. This could be upgraded to a tropical storm warning, depending on how things look in the next 24 hours. These all go into effect on Saturday morning, by the way. Obviously, please check in with your local government and your local officials for all the latest changes. I'll keep you updated, but it's up to you guys to keep an eye out for the absolute latest changes in those watches and potential warnings coming up. So let's break it down for these areas: Anguilla, St. Martin, St. Bart's, Saba, St. Eustatius, St. Kitts and Nevis, not under the tropical storm watch as of now. Montserrat, Antigua, also not under the tropical storm watch. But overall, for this portion of the Leeward Islands, I expect the timing to be late Friday throughout the day on Saturday. sustained winds of 30 to 40 miles an hour. Farther north that you go, you get closer to those 40-mile-an-hour sustained winds, gusts of over 50 from time to time, rainfall amounts of 2 to 4 inches, that's 50 to 100 millimeters. Locally heavy rainfall could lead to some flooding issues in some of the islands, large wave and rip currents. We're going to see some marine issues coming in with this as well. For the U.S. and British Virgin Islands, Anegada, Tortola, Jost Van Dyke, St. Croix, St. Thomas, St. John, Vieques, Culebra, Puerto Rico. Timing is mainly going to be on Saturday. Winds of around 25 to 35 miles an hour sustained, but we could still get some gusts to around 50 miles an hour. I do expect the opportunity over the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico to get up to 5 inches of rain in some areas. That again could lead to some localized flooding, rising the stream levels, rising some of the river levels, causing some urban problems as well. And again, large wave and rip currents, especially on the north-facing sides of the islands, northern Puerto Rico, the northern sides of the islands as well. So that's what it looks like in the shorter term. Let me go back out to the broad perspective. And again, we're going to now take our models and just go into the extended range to break down what's going to be happening. So at this point in time, right, for now, and we hope it's the case, Erin looks to stay north of the Leeward Islands, Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico. Can it continue to thread the needle across the rest of the islands? Well, what we're going to be looking for is when that turn to the northwest and eventually north occurs. The GFS model has always been the farthest east, but over the last 24 hours, it has slipped farther west. That still is going to provide a bit of a buffer for Turks and Caicos and the southeast Bahamas. And that is good news, because by the time we get into Monday and Tuesday, we are more than likely going to have a major hurricane. The official forecast for the National Hurricane Center, and let me see if the latest one has come in. It has 125 mile-an-hour winds with gusts up to 155. So a major hurricane sitting just off of the eastern side of the Bahamas and Turks and Caicos. And you can clearly see how it gets stronger and stronger in this time frame. Now, the next question is, if that curve does occur east of the Bahamas, which would be fantastic, can it slip between the coastline of North Carolina and Bermuda? Now, Bermuda, it would not be a fantastic scenario here because Bermuda is on the stronger east side of the storm. This would be okay for the United States East Coast, including the Outer Banks of North Carolina, because that curve would occur several hundred miles offshore, but that would not be great for Bermuda. Again, this is the latest deterministic run of the GFS model. Let me show you the winds associated with this. I'm just going to show you gusts so you guys kind of get an idea about this as well. So this might take just a second because I don't know if I fully loaded this ahead of time, but when you start to get into those yellows and blacks, that becomes a problem. Now, again, you can clearly see that the east side of the storm, especially the front right quadrant of the storm, is your strongest part of any hurricane as it moves. As it moving north, it's going to be on the northern and eastern side. But these are your wind gusts associated with this. Let me bring it back up. Again, if we pause it right here, and you're looking at these wind gusts, oops, sorry about that. It almost looks like the model can't even handle a little bit. So the wind gusts here are still going to be well over, major hurricane strength, okay? I actually believe this is a little bit underdoing it, to be quite honest, but you can clearly see, just to point out, that the wind field is going to extend farther east. So you would start to at least get very solid tropical storm conditions with the GFS model in Bermuda. But overall, if the GFS pans out, it's about the best case scenario, not bringing the core of the major hurricane force winds across any of the islands or the east coast of the United States. This is the European model. You're going to start to see a bigger spread in the European ensembles as we get into next week. So the far western side of the models do begin to kind of tug it a little bit closer to the Bahamas, but staying away, just away. But the far east coast of the United States do come into play with the western envelope of the models here on the European ensemble. Again, the core, keep it between North Carolina and Bermuda, which is great, but there is a bigger spread here on the European model. And the GFS, as I mentioned, is the farthest east. The other models are farther west along with the European. We'll see, though, if we can kind of slip right up the Gulf Stream in between those two. So this is the GFS ensemble tracks. Again, you can see the center line is pretty close to Bermuda. There are a few ensemble members that are closer to the United States East Coast. There are some that go farther away from Bermuda as well. Most, though, are right in between that envelope. And again, kind of closer in time, a few get a little bit closer to Turks and Caicos and the southeast Bahamas, but most are a couple of 100 miles offshore. So the other problem is that we're now starting to see all of these global models really begin, all these tropical models, to pick up on a very strong Erin down the road. Cat 3, maybe even Cat 4 strength. And a lot of the, the official plot has this high-end Cat 3, but not out of the question that Erin could become a Category 4 hurricane as we get towards early and mid next week. So again, apologize for this. That should say 790 miles away. Forgot to update that, but everything else is still to play. Still forecast to be a major hurricane. Still an uncertain track, but the highest opportunity is for it to move just north of the islands. But if you live in the Leeward Islands, Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, Turks and Caicos, Bahamas, and Bermuda, you still need to monitor, especially in the Leeward Islands, the northern Leeward Islands, where we now have those tropical storm watches that are currently into play. Friends, I appreciate you guys. A lot more to go in the video, but if you could take a quick second and hit that like button for me right now for getting anything out of this video, I really appreciate that. Subscribe to Meteo Mundo. You want these tropical updates, your daily forecasts across the Caribbean and the Bahamas. Appreciate you guys sharing this channel with your family and friends. Appreciate those who are members. We have 2 tiers, a supporter tier, just 99 cents a month. You want to kick it up a notch, become a Team MM member. That's just $2.99 a month. You get access to exclusive member video shorts. I give you guys updates on my thoughts in between our longer format videos. So before we get into the area here off towards our west, I do want to do one other thing and bring on our spaghetti plot models. These are all of the tropical models that are currently running, and I do want to just point out that all of them are within this cone of uncertainty, okay? I think we have one rogue outlier here that would take it more into the Lesser Antilles, but the vast majority follow this trend, and I mean threading that needle. Let's hope that continues. What we really actually want to see is the storm begin to gain a little bit of strength here in the next 48 hours to tug it farther north. If the shear is still pulling it south and west, then that might be another discussion for tomorrow. We'll see how the model trends play out over the next 24 hours. So the Friday update will be very important to that as well. Back over to the Southwest Gulf, we actually have an invest here. This is going to be, I believe, invest 98L, if I am not mistaken. Give me just one second here. Reset that. That should pop on now. So this is Invest 98L. Now, it's looking pretty decent. It's up to a medium chance of development. It's not going to become much, but we could get Tropical Storm Ferdinand before it gets into the western side, the eastern side of Mexico, southwest sides of Texas, just like Barry. Very reminiscent of Barry, where Barry developed just before landfall. Locally heavy rain is going to be the big story here. Now, behind this, we're still seeing some thunderstorms developing at the hour over the Yucatan, Cancun, and Cozumel, spreading in. We'll take a run towards Merida and the Campeche areas. Thunderstorms are breaking out at the hour over Cuba, especially on the southern side of the island, towards Cienfuegos, Santiago de Cuba as well. A couple of isolated showers and storms drifting across portions of the Cayman Islands at the hour. We're starting to see some hefty thunderstorms in Jamaica again, and we've had some prolific thunderstorm activity on these southern areas, Clarendon, Manchester, St. Elizabeth parishes, trying to drift in the eastern sides of Westmoreland. So from Maypen and Hayes, I mean, look at that lightning right there in between Mandeville and the Maypen areas. If you guys live in these areas, look at that lightning count just go crazy. Really rowdy storms there, gusty winds, Black River, back towards Savlamar and western areas, and even over towards close to Kingston, Kingston, Linstead, Spanish Town. Watch that little thunderstorm develop there just north of those areas. So again, if you guys live in Jamaica, let me know in the comment section below what's been happening in your area. Elsewhere, it's a little bit quieter behind the rain and storms with that moisture being pulled away for portions of Belize and Honduras and Nicaragua, seeing some good thunderstorms at the hour over Panama and Costa Rica. Back into the Bahamas, again, an area we'll be monitoring in the near future here for what Erin is going to do. But at this point in time, we've just had a couple of drifting showers and storms. Noted a little bit of lightning on the western sides of Grand Bahama and Andros, but it's been quiet. The big story in the Bahamas has been the heat. It has been exceptionally hot, and many of you have let me know just how toasty it's been in your area. It's a gorgeous shot. If you guys don't know, we have live cameras here at Meteo Mundo. It's one of the exclusive things we can bring you guys to help tell the weather story. This is a live look late Thursday to Long Island in the Bahamas. It's a beautiful forecast as far as the sky goes, but when I bring on these current temperatures, it's not going to be as pleasant for us here. So once those pop on, you're going to see, again, some 80s, some 90s. That's part of the story. What's the bigger story? What does it feel like outside? Before the thunderstorm moved through Freeport, it felt like 100 degrees, and it's back up to 100. Nassau, New Providence, right around 104 feels like temperature as well. Pretty rough down in Grand Turk, feels like temperature of 102. Thunderstorms are beginning to break out over portions of the Dominican Republic and Haiti. We've had a couple of good thunderstorms over the Santo Domingo area. You see those temperatures come down, locally heavy rainfall right over some of the interior sections and the higher terrain. This could lead to some localized flooding as well, just to the east of Port-au-Prince. It's been a blustery day with some thunderstorms developing on the southern sides of Puerto Rico, but it's mainly been dry. Heat has been the big story in Puerto Rico as well. Again, temperatures are right around 90 degrees Fahrenheit. That's 32 degrees Celsius. You factor in the humidity, feels like numbers in the Ponce area, well above 100. We've had some triple digit feels like temperatures around portions of the Virgin Islands. Felt like 103 earlier today in the St. Thomas area. Gonna bring on the visible satellite imagery here for you guys. And again, fast moving showers ahead of Erin possible, right? We've seen some thicker cloud coverage today in the Leeward Islands overall. And again, the blue slash marks are your tropical storm watches. Again, Barbuda, yes. Antigua, no, at least at this point in time. But again, we've had some passing showers in this area. You guys live there, let me know. Montserrat had a good downpour earlier in the day. Some showers over Guadeloupe, Dominica, Martinique. We're getting a little bit of instability coming back into the Windward Islands as well. There is going to be the opportunity here to start to see better rain chances beginning tomorrow for the Windward Islands. So St. Lucia, Barbados, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Grenada, TNT. No direct impacts from Erin too far north, but we are going to get a better opportunity to slide some showers into your area. Before we move on, a live look outside with that little bit of hazy sun, but beautiful afternoon in the Corinth, St. Lucia area on this late Thursday. Fantastic shot there. Glass out there along the coastal waters. ABC Islands, hot, dry. Let's check out the winds, if those have been a big story for today. Haven't had the 30-plus mile-an-hour winds again for this afternoon. That's nice. And it's another beautiful late afternoon here in Ronstadt. I just love this camera. Let me get myself off camera. Yellow flag still flying at the beach, as you could probably expect with those kinds of winds. Excuse me, but it's just been a fantastic afternoon here in the Oranjestad area. Okay, back out to what's going to be happening here. Actually, before I do that, let me zoom back out, bring back on our model here, and we're going to look at your island by island rainfall forecast. Then we're going to talk about the marine interests. If you guys have marine interests in association with Erin, I'm going to break that down for you guys as well. As I said, there's a lot to get into in this video, especially when you have a storm that's moving in, you have a storm that's expected to become a hurricane, covering everywhere else as well. So back in the short term, we've talked about the wet weather, the opportunity for 2 to 4, maybe 5 inches of rain, so some flooding here. Weather really going downhill late Friday night into Saturday for the northern Leeward Islands, throughout the day Saturday and into Sunday for the British and U.S. Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, and down the road again, places like Turks and Caicos, southeast Bahamas, will start to see some squalls, even on the western side, kind of getting pushed out into that area. So rain chances all going up there. Expecting there to be decent rain chances over Cuba and Jamaica over the next couple of days. Scattered rain over the Cayman Islands. Still going to see some decent rain in the Yucatan tomorrow, but overall a drier pattern as, again, whatever this becomes pulls into Mexico and South Texas. The GFS model doesn't have it really doing much, but it's still not going to shock me that for a very brief time we end up getting Tropical Storm Ferdinand. But again, a little bit drier forecast behind that in the shorter term. Now that does not include Costa Rica and Panama. Monsoon trough still in effect there, so a lot of rain still expected. And again, even down into the Windward Islands, I'm still expecting there to be more moisture coming back in. So just an overall better rain chance. The fetch of wind as Erin goes north of the area is going to be out of the south. It's going to be tugging some moisture across the eastern Caribbean overall. So it's just going to be a wetter forecast in general. The Dominican Republic and Haiti obviously will get some rain impacts, more than likely not wind impacts, even on the northern coastline for Puerto Plata, the Samana Peninsula, Punta Cana. Now look, marine interests really need to pay attention in all of these areas. You live on the northern side of the islands here, you live on the eastern side of the Bahamas, Turks and Caicos, you're going to get some long period swells. So this is the island by island breakdown. Anywhere that you see orange, it's not that there's so much rain, it's that I expect there to be the potential for impacts from Erin in your area that day. So not expecting it in the Bahamas, but on Sunday, we could see some impacts for the Turks and Caicos with a 70% chance for rain, 60% chance in Cuba, scattered showers for the Cayman Islands and Belize. Again, falling storm chances for Cancun and Cozumel. Jamaica's rain chances aren't bad, especially southern and western parishes. Hefty thunderstorms are possible in the afternoon hours. Building rain chances in the DR and Haiti. Really high rain chances over the weekend for Puerto Rico and the U.S. and British Virgin Islands, where again, impacts could be felt across the weekend in those areas. Highest impacts for Anguilla and St. Kitts and Nevis will be on Saturday, starting kind of late Friday throughout the day on Saturday, tailing off on Sunday, but still squally weather and breezy conditions on Sunday. Antigua, Montserrat, Guadalupe, and Dominica, again, more direct impacts from Erin on Saturday, but very high rain chances building through the day tomorrow. Still elevated rain chances on Sunday. High rain chances for Martinique, but far enough south, not expecting any direct impacts there. And again, still some kind of unsettled weather, if you will, for St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Barbados and south, including Grenada, Trinidad and Tobago the next couple of afternoons. Nothing outrageous, but could we get enough rain where there could be a flood advisory from time to time, again, with a localized interest outside of Erin? It's not out of the question. It's just a wet, unstable pattern in the Eastern Caribbean over the next several days, regardless of how close you are to Erin. But obviously, we're much more concerned about the wind impacts the farther north in the island chain that you go. Good rain chances for Suriname and Guyana, and scattered rain chances will return for Nueva Esparta and the ABC Islands. All right, here you go. This model based off the GFS. So anywhere that Erin is going, we are going to have wave heights building to potentially up to 20 feet or higher within that core. So we're going to start to get some, small craft warnings. We're going to get some elevated surf warnings, sea conditions. We're going to have some gale warnings issued, I'm sure, as well. Long period swells for the eastern side of the Bahamas and the Turks and Caicos. Look, even if this has no direct impacts on the United States East Coast, which is not forecast to have right now, we're going to have some problems along the East Coast of the United States with elevated sea conditions, especially in offshore waters, but we could have some beach problems as well, even for the East Coast of Florida and up towards the Outer Banks of North Carolina. There's just going to be a lot of wave action coming in with a major hurricane that would be no more than a few hundred to 700 miles offshore, right? So that's another issue. Again, kind of a glancing blow from Erin, but the waves are obviously a bigger story. European model rainfall totals. You'll see on this map 2, 4, 6 inches of rain building into the Leeward Islands, Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico. And along that path, we could have probably more than a foot of rain. So Bermuda could be in store for some heavier rain down the road. But you can clearly see the European deterministic model, exactly where it takes the core of Erin. On the west side, we wouldn't get as much rain for the Bahamas, Turks and Caicos, but still some squally conditions, especially Sunday and into Monday. Friends, I appreciate you guys. You guys know I'm going to keep you updated here with Erin, throughout the remainder of the forecast. You can follow us across all of our social media platforms, Instagram, TikTok, X, and Facebook. You want to send me a picture or video, go to myMediaMundo@gmail.com. As always, if you have a specific question about the forecast, feel free to drop it in the comment section below. I do appreciate you guys taking a quick second and liking and subscribing. Both really help out the channel. And please remember that Meteo Mundo is sponsored by the Lean Law Firm of Central Florida, your hometown homeowners insurance attorneys. Wind, hail, hurricane damage, they'll walk you through every step of the insurance claim process. They offer free consultation and policy reviews. Go to leanonmelaw.com if you would like more information. Friends, have a great rest of your day. I'm back tomorrow with all the latest information on what likely by then is going to be Hurricane Erin. We'll talk about what's expected for our islands in the short term and the long-term path of Erin as well. Take care. I'll see you soon right here at Meteo Mundo.